Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're celebrating a truly fascinating, multifaceted life. On July 25th, 2026, the world lost 85-year-old Bill Oddie. When his passing was announced by his agent, it immediately sparked an outpouring of love, but from entirely different corners of the public. And that's because Bill Oddie left behind a surprisingly dual legacy. He wasn't just a guy who had a midlife career change. He literally lived two massive, culturally significant lives that touched millions of people in completely different ways. If you ask people who Bill Oddie was, you're going to get two totally distinct answers. On one hand, you have a whole generation who fondly remembers him from the 1970s as this wild, hairy, bearded comic riding around on a three-seater Trandem bicycle, just creating absolute surrealist mayhem on television. But then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have fans who know him simply as Britain's best-loved birder, the enthusiastic, occasionally grumpy guy with binoculars around his neck standing in a field on the BBC's Springwatch. It's a pretty jarring contrast, right? I mean, how does a Cambridge-educated slapstick comedian become one of Britain's most respected conservationists? Well, let's dive into this, because setting up this paradox is absolutely crucial to understanding the man. As we're about to see, his passion for laughter and his love for birdsong weren't just random career choices. They were deeply intertwined, born out of the exact same unique mind. To really understand him, we have to go back to the beginning. Born in July 1941 in Rochdale, he was raised in Birmingham by his father and his grandmother. Now, it was a very tough childhood. His mother, Lillian, had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and Bill later discovered that her severe depression was tied to the tragic, premature deaths of his two older siblings. Amidst all that heavy emotional weight and family tragedy, young Bill really needed an escape, and he found profound solace in nature. So, tracing his path, it was definitely far from conventional. Way back in 1956, he already had a bird record published. He was quite literally a dedicated birder before he even knew the word for it. But then, he heads off to Cambridge University to study English literature, and he falls right in with the legendary Footlights comedy troupe alongside folks like John Cleese. By 1963, his review work transfers to Broadway, and he's even writing for David Frost. This incredible momentum just builds and builds, culminating in 1970 when he teams up with his Cambridge buddies to create a TV show that would define an entire era. That show, of course, was The Goodies. Alongside Brooke-Taylor and Graeme Garden, they offered their services with that famous tagline, "We do anything, anywhere, anytime." It was 12 solid years of pure slapstick, surrealism, and absolute stop-motion anarchy. In fact, the British Film Institute famously described his specific persona as hairy, cynical, anarchic, which, honestly, Oddie embodied to perfection. But here's the fun part. Bill wasn't just bringing the physical comedy. He was also a highly successful songwriter for the show. He composed novelty tracks, most famously, the Funky Gibbon. That song was an absolute smash hit, peaking right at number 4 on the UK charts. The trio even performed it live on Top of the Pops. And The Goodies wasn't just some local phenomenon. It was a massive global cult success. Take the famous Kitten Kong episode, where a giant feline literally topples the post office tower in London. That brilliant piece of TV actually won the prestigious Silver Rose at the 1972 Montreux TV Festival. The show ran on the BBC for most of the 70s, had a stint on ITV in '82, and was so beloved internationally that the guys even reunited for a tour of Australia in 2005. Britain's best-loved birder, the second career. So, moving past his comedy stint, he makes a monumental pivot in the 1990s back to his first love. He took that childhood passion for wildlife and turned it into a second career that would arguably make him just as famous as The Goodies ever did. We're talking massive BBC series like Birding with Bill Oddie and Bill Oddie Goes Wild. Then, in 2005, alongside Kate Humble and Simon King, he became one of the original hosts of the broadcasting juggernaut, Springwatch, bringing the raw drama of British wildlife directly into millions of living rooms. He possessed this extraordinary gift as a broadcaster. As Kate Humble pointed out, he just had a way of making the natural world everybody's world. It wasn't about highbrow science, it was about getting genuinely excited over a simple robin in your garden. He was sometimes slightly grumpy, sure, but highly energetic and incredibly accessible. And his dedication went way beyond just pointing at birds on television. He authored numerous books, like Bill Oddie's Little Black Bird book. He campaigned tirelessly, and he was constantly lobbying for nature. His work was so impactful that in 2003, he was awarded an OBE for his services to wildlife conservation, alongside the highly prestigious RSPB medal. Despite reaching the absolute heights of television stardom twice in two totally different genres, his agent David Foster said it best. It was never fame that drove him. He used his massive platform not for ego, but to protest, to lead, and to get people of all ages to respect and protect the environment. Next up, the inner struggle, the courage to be himself. It's important to remember that behind all the public joy in that infectious enthusiasm for nature, Bill was fighting a really profound personal battle with inherited depression and bipolar disorder. In an era where very few celebrities spoke openly about mental health, Bill completely broke the mold. He stepped forward, publicly claimed his struggles, and heavily destigmatized the condition for so many people watching at home who felt alone. These private battles were incredibly severe. Back in September 2020, he shared a very candid social media post revealing he had survived a near-fatal lithium toxicity. He honestly admitted he was very confused and ill, and he showed that same vulnerability when he was replaced by Chris Packham on Springwatch in 2008, openly admitting how much he missed the show, even though he was proud of the legacy it continued. His openness really let people see the whole man. Kate Humble described this perfectly, saying sometimes he could be fantastically grumpy, but other times he was just the absolute best company in the world. This authentic human duality didn't diminish his legacy at all. It enhanced it. He wasn't just a birder or an irascible comedian. He was unapologetically all of those things at once. And finally, an extraordinary legacy. Bill Oddie lived a full, incredibly complex 85 years, leaving behind his wife Laura and his daughters Bonnie, Kate, and Rosie. And honestly, the paradox of his two lives completely resolves itself when you hear the tribute from the RSPCA. Nature has lost one of its best friends. The zany comedian who sang about a Funky Gibbon and the passionate conservationist fighting for British wildlife were the exact same brilliant man. He really proved that you can be serious and funny, grumpy and incredibly kind, all at once. I think the greatest tribute we can pay to Britain's best-loved birder isn't just to rewatch his old shows, but to actually take his advice. So, I'll leave you with this. How will you step outside, grab some binoculars, and make the world just a little wilder today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.